Hi, everyone. I am your host, Cindy. Welcome back to my podcast. This episode is celebrating success and planning for the future. And I'm really excited to close on this last episode for my 4-week series on debt management. I had so much to say in the previous episode. So if you did not get a chance and you're just now coming across my podcast with this episode, I highly encourage you go listen to the first 3 episodes or the last 3 episodes previous to this one because it will cover an in depth on debt management. So, in this episode, I am covering just how do we review our progress in this journey? How do we stay motivated and review our progress? And also understanding how and why to set up long term financial goals. I think financial goals is such a great, solid pre-plan to debt payoff. You've got to have those financial goals in place. I will also be discussing budgeting for future success, as well as building on emergency funds and investing in the future. And then I will end with closing with developing healthy financial habits. So let's just jump right into it. The importance of tracking your debt repayment progress. Why is it so important to track our progress? Well, first of all, motivation and accountability. I mean, this gives us so much discipline, and tracking allows for you to measure your progress against your goals. And of course, you need to have goals, right? Which we'll talk about in a minute, but measuring your progress against these goals. I mean, you've got to have measurable and specific goals that's going to keep you accountable, but keep you motivated. But also financial awareness. When you regularly monitor your debt repayment, this is going to help you to stay aware of your financial situation, especially when those unexpected expenses come up. And celebrating small wins. Of course, I'm a big, huge believer on celebrating small wins and acknowledge the progress that you've made so far. So let's jump into setting some long term financial goals. I want you to define your financial goals beyond debt repayment. I'm talking about saving for a home, maybe even retirement, living comfortably, maybe even a long term emergency fund. But I want you to sit down and really identify those goals by looking at what you want to achieve financially in the long run. What will financial freedom give you? What will you achieve? When you achieve financial freedom, what will that give you? What lifestyle will that give you? Then I want you to prioritize your goals based on the importance and the timing of it. And then I want you to set those SMART goals that are measurable, specific, and actionable. And, instead of saying, I want to save money, that's too vague. I want you to say, I want to save $50,000 for a car. I want to save $50,000 for a down payment on a home. Now, that is a SMART goal. That's a long term goal. Then I want you to break that down, all of your goals, break them down into smaller steps. If you want a down payment at a home, perhaps you're going to start saving $50 into an automatic savings account to reach that goal. But I want you to create a timeline that's realistic, achievable. Develop a financial plan that outlines how you will achieve your goals. How will you get there every month or every week? And then I want you to include this plan in your budget. Incorporate the savings in your budget. Here's a few tips. You can automate your savings. You can set up an automatic moving money from your checking to your savings account. You can also invest in maybe an online savings account, maybe something with a high yield or and which I'll be getting into a little bit, but I'm also going to be covering this in my debt workshop that's coming up March 27th. So, I'm going to be talking about a high yield savings account and a money market and those high interest savings. But I want you to stay disciplined. I want you to stick to your budget. Okay. And also, third tip, eliminate unnecessary expenses. Cut back on your expenses, make some sacrifices, even if it's temporary. And I'll give you an example. Do you really need cable? Maybe cut back on your cable. Do you really need all those cookies and everything that you get at the grocery store, all those goodies? Maybe cut back on that. All right, let's jump into budgeting for future success. How are we going to create a budget that aligns with our goals, long term financial goals? Well, within my debt workshop coming up in March, I will be going into depth on creating a balanced budget that works with your lifestyle. You don't have to cut back on everything, but you do need to make sacrifices, and that I highly encourage. You do need to make sacrifices. So I will be getting into more depth on how to create a budget that will align with your lifestyle and align with long term financial goals. So you don't want to miss out on registering for that. And it's already open. So go ahead. I believe I provided it in the show notes description, but go ahead and sign up for that debt workshop. Now, also prioritizing your savings and investments once your debt is paid off. Focus on the most important things like paying off your home or saving for a home. Also, identify areas to cut back. I talked about this just a few minutes ago. Cutting back on expenses temporarily or indefinitely will increase your savings, whether it be utilities, shopping of any kind, the bare minimum groceries, focusing on just buying the necessities. Now, let's talk about building an emergency fund because I feel like statistic wise, there is about 68% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in savings. And that's an emergency fund. And that is scary, especially the rate that we're going in this economy. That is scary. It is so important to have an emergency fund to cover so many different things, especially unexpected expenses. God willing, you don't lose your job, but if you lose a job, you incur some medical expenses, something happens, that's unexpected. But you can focus on a short term, 3 to 6 months, just to cover bare minimum of your fixed expenses. This is bare minimum fixed expenses, mortgage, utilities, insurances. Now, if you have 3 to 6 months of savings, that's an emergency fund. You can also, if you already have a 3 to 6 months, focus on 6 months or more. That's a longer term emergency fund. But I always highly recommend do not and do not save for a 6 month or more emergency fund if you have debt still. You need to focus on paying off your debt, but you also need to have 3 to 6 months bare minimum of fixed expenses in your savings account. Now, how do you determine the right amount for your emergency fund? Well, you calculate it. You calculate your fixed bare minimum expenses. How much is your mortgage or your rent? How much are your utilities? How much are the bare minimum of insurances? Auto insurance, mortgage insurance, renter's insurance, health insurance outside of your employer. That's bare minimum. Now, I want to give you a few tips for building and maintaining an emergency fund. Every dollar counts, every single dollar. You want to set up that savings automatically. That can help significantly. I don't care if it's $25, 25, 20 a week, $25 a week, $50 a week, whatever it is. You need to set up an automatic savings if you do not have an emergency fund to cover you for 3 to 6 months bare minimum fixed expenses. And again, I'll be covering this in my debt workshop as well. Now, let's talk about investing for the future and long term financial growth. Now, there are different types of investments: stocks, bonds, mutual funds. But in my workshop, what I focus on are high yield savings account or a money market, whichever has the better return on investment interest rate wise. And there are some great ones out there. Online savings account. With the high yield savings account, I mean, you can do some transfers. You may not get a debit card, you may not get some checks, but a money market may be a little lower in interest rate, but you could get some checks and you can get a debit card. It's better interest than a traditional savings account. I highly recommend that if you're ever interested in going beyond just that, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, I want you to speak to a professional. Get advice from a financial advisor, but you have to connect with a professional. Now, lastly, developing healthy financial habits. You want to establish and maintain good financial habits. For example, regular budgeting, monitoring your expenses, using free budgeting apps. You can manage your expenses, see what goes in, see what goes out, see what comes in. The importance of ongoing financial education, staying informed about your financial trends is so important. It is so important to educate yourself on anything and everything financial. Personal finances is so important. I'm a financial coach. And I offer this in my signature course. And I have a debt management workshop coming up March 27th, 5 o'clock p.m., 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will be giving you an overview of what debt management is, the benefits to having a solid plan in place to pay off your debt. I will also be providing a free workbook to give you the ability to walk you through each of my steps, everything that I'm going to be showing you in this workshop, your workbook that I'm going to provide you upon purchase. Immediately upon purchase, I'll email it to you. You can get started on it. I'm providing tools and resources within this workbook that are going to be so helpful for you. I'm also covering my 3-step framework. The first step, assess your financial situation. The second step, debt repayment plan. The third step, balanced payment spending plan. Now, I'm diving deeper into the second step in my workshop, which is the debt repayment plan. But in just 4 simple steps, I'm going to show you how to pay off your debt efficiently and effectively using my proven framework that has helped over 45 clients of mine, including myself, to reach financial freedom. I'm also going to be offering a pre-sale offer to my signature course. Everything from beginning to end will be covered in this course, but I'm only offering a pre-sale to my workshop students. So please stay tuned for that because it will be coming up probably closer to June timeframe. So just to recap, I talked about the motivation and accountability and the importance of tracking your progress, celebrating those small wins. I also covered setting up those long-term financial goals. Define what type of goals you want to achieve. Is it saving for a home, sending your kids to college, living a comfortable retirement, maybe an emergency fund? Also, budgeting for future success. You want to stay on track with your budget. Create a budget that will work with your lifestyle. Prioritize your savings and investments once you pay off your debt. Identify areas that you can cut back. Build on that emergency fund. 3 to 6 months to cover bare minimum of fixed expenses. That is what you need before you start paying off your debt and investing in the future. Seek help, professional financial advice from a professional financial advisor. They will help guide you when you get to that point. And developing healthy financial habits. This is going to be good for you to maintain that rhythm every single month, every single week. When you're starting off, I always recommend on a weekly basis, look at your budget. Okay, so stay focused on your financial goals. Focus on your why. Why do you want financial freedom? Why do you want to pay off your debt? Why or where do you see yourself 3 to 5 years from now financially? What is your why? All right, guys, I just want to express my gratitude to all my listeners. If you got this far for tuning in, thank you so much for your support. I want to reach as many people as I can with my podcast and help as many people as I can. So I invite you to connect with me on Instagram, subscribe to my podcast on Apple Music or Spotify so you don't miss out on my next episode. and my next 4-week series. It's going to be big. And until then, take care and God bless.